Okay, that's very nice. Awesome. So thank you for coming, for talking to me. I think we are probably gonna post this on. I don't know how we're gonna post this because you wanted to ask me some questions, but
Yeah.
so thank you for like coming to talk and for just. By the way, I'm in his space, so
Yeah.
thank you for like opening up your space just to like have this random chat. So I just a little bit of preamble. I have a YouTube channel, but this year I sort of like wanted to like chat more with people that are other people more or less have this like podcast style kind of recordings with people who just chat about people's experiences so that in some sense I'm a software engineer. Most of the things that I know is like in software engineering, and most of the things that I know is just limited to my own knowledge and my own experience.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get other people's perspective and just talk to other people in other fields in tech. And I was just talking to someone earlier and they're like, oh, maybe I should get on different other fields. So
Yeah.
I might think about that, getting more people in like other fields, but that's basically why I'm doing this, just to like talk more with people in other fields and just get their opinions and perspective about and just hear about their story. So after doing all that preamble, so tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into tech? What do you even do? Like, except you've read the description, which I don't know what is going to be there. People are probably not going to know you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've done, and the things you've started, stuff like that. Yeah.
My name is Kasey. I have about 4 years of product management experience, so I am in the AI space as a product manager. I graduated from the east side of North America at this college called the University of Waterloo.
Okay.
I did a non-traditional degree, which means that I studied both on the business and the life sciences side of stuff, and that was actually my degree. But I had a lot of internships and co-ops that made me realize that product management as a tech function within the tech industry was potentially something that I wanted to do. After I graduated, I was going through a lot of career anxiety at the time because I didn't realize if I wanted to do maybe design, if I wanted to do consulting, if I wanted to do development, software dev like you did, and a lot of other different functions that you would see in today's knowledge working world. And I realized that product management might be that case, simply because I had the communication skills for it, or if I had other different interests that made me feel like I could work cross-functionally, work and deal with politics, deal with all that sort of stuff, stakeholder management, so to speak, maybe a better euphemism for that politics word. And eventually I graduated during COVID, and I moved to Seattle to work at Microsoft first. So I worked in the Microsoft's Bing search platform for about 2.5 years. It was a great time. Obviously, I worked with incredibly smart people. I felt like everyone around me was more like smarter than me in a lot of different ways. So I tried to soak up as much information as I could in that space and within that team. That being said, I think at the 2-year mark, there was still a lot for me to learn from a technical knowledge point of view and product perspective and the domain knowledge and everything. But I felt like I wasn't potentially the best fit for this space. Because I had that non-traditional, non-technical background. So I felt like I wanted to be in a product management role that was more user and customer facing because I was part of a very back-end heavy platform team. And second was because I think that it was for my time to realize that I wanted just a different product culture experience. Because at Microsoft, as you know, it's such a massive organization, and with the large company means that each product team within the larger brand has their different way of doing product. So there's a lot of different incentives there, and that's why I decided to move to Planview, which is my current company. They're mainly operating in the software enterprise B2B space, but they have this AI assistant called Planview Copilot that I'm currently being a PM for. So that's what I'm currently doing. On the side, obviously, I also create some content on my own. I love writing a lot. So during my time at Microsoft, I wrote a fiction book, published it with this writing accelerator program, barely broke even. So I'm going to be honest, no, definitely keep your day job if you're going to try to do this while not putting your all into it. Like I wasn't probably able to because I had a full-time gig. And I also like to keep a community going and in Vancouver here in the city called PM Hive. And I also co-organize this other kind of community, aka just like a week-long tech festival called Vancouver Tech Week. So we're trying to do that to grow this city specifically as a tech giant, but we have a long ways to go. So obviously, to summarize, we got a lot of moving stuff in my life right now. I'm sure you do as well. So I think it's really great to just sit down and basically debrief everything I've been doing and share that with you to see like obviously where we can keep going.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole lot. I've just been trying to think in my head some of the questions that I have. And I think the first thing that I wanted to ask, and I'm probably just going to start typing them on my phone so that I don't forget. I think one of the first things that I wanted to ask was I think you said you considered various fields that you could go into, dev and all those other things, but you ended up settling with product management. And I wanted to know what your process was like to eliminate all those things. Because also for me, I mean, I wanted to like do electronics and electrical engineering, and then when I got to like high school, I got introduced to computing, and then I was going to do hardware engineering because I was like, yeah, Microsoft was building cool things. Like, yeah, I want to go work at Microsoft and build cool hardware and stuff like that. But it wasn't. It was more cost effective for me to do something that I could just do on my laptop, and I tried 3D animation, I tried product design, and I tried a couple of other things before I settled with software engineering. And I wanted to know what your process was. How did you decide to choose? I know you already started talking about that, the fact that maybe you thought we were good with like the political part of things, like talking to stakeholders and also communication. But do you want like talk more about how you settled on product management?
Yeah, so my process was somewhat similar to yours. Like you explored 3D animation, you explored design before you settled on engineering. I did something similar in the sense that I had this idea originally of going into biotechnology because that was my specification in my undergrad. And then I realized that during the time, which was like 2017, 2018, AI was just starting to get popular, but the cloud, web stuff, Web 2, a lot of machine learning stuff was starting to really blow up. And all the VC money was going into that industry. And I had the privilege to one of my first ever co-op / internships was at BlackBerry. I know the companies we're still going at it. Yeah. They pivot obviously in the security space and all some other spaces, but I was working on the small messenger app that's no longer available actually called BlackBerry Messenger. I was just in the business coordination role, but that's when I discovered product management. And by that point, I had looked into stuff like consulting, and I had looked into being in the biotech space somewhere, maybe as a scientist, as a researcher, or even just like a public speaker or some sort of like more front-facing role that's closer to the money. That role made me discover how PMs operated in BlackBerry, and ironically, I realized that BlackBerry had helped me really fall in love with the product management role. When I say fall in love, I don't mean obviously like right away I'm like, okay, that's just my job. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. That's in reality wise, 99.9% of us don't fall into that space. We take so long, we pivot so many times. There's so many small nuances and small differences in the jobs that we do these days. And there's so many specific niche jobs out there, right? But it made me realize that something similar to product management, or maybe that title itself, was something I felt like specifically for me was something for me and a good fit for me. And that's why I tried to jump into it right away. That being said, I obviously had to like go to adjacent roles first, so stuff like consulting. I even did like a data analysis job, so I did like Python SQL stuff at an internship as well. And eventually made me through process of elimination made me realize that okay, I think product management is probably still the best.
I think that makes sense. By the way, I also like took some courses in like data analysis and AI and stuff. But I think one thing that I was going to ask, just so that we can close on that, is say there's someone that is in the same boat now and they're just trying to get into tech, or they're trying to like switch careers into tech, and they're like, I'm not exactly sure what I want to do. What's that one thing that you would say you learn from you trying different things out that you would want to do different, or what is that advice that you would give to people that are going through the same thing that you went through?
I love that question, because I feel like I've given various different talks to student bodies or groups that come from non-traditional backgrounds. And usually speaking, in the product management field, most hiring managers would look at a candidate with the same amount of experience as a non-traditional candidate if they had that technical experience, and they might prioritize them first, because obviously it always helps. Having technical experience in a product management role always helps. That being said, my advice is always, and I'm going to echo one of my other good friends, Anthony, who's a senior PM at Microsoft, and he always says this all the time, is you absolutely have to go the extra mile. When I say extra mile, I mean you're going to have to learn a lot of, basic web development and basic architectural development on the side. You're going to have to learn how to build a web app. You're going to have to learn at least how software architecture works. You're going to have to learn data analysis on your own. You might even have to participate in a few hackathons or build your own projects, right? Or build your own website with a portfolio. Simply so that you really demonstrate that you've gone the extra mile to learn that outside of the school knowledge. And that shows to a lot of hiring managers that you can go the extra mile, and that would also be reflected in the PM job. Because unfortunately, in today's world, the PM role is such a saturated space. And a lot of people want to get into product management. And it's not like back in 2017, 2018 when I first discovered PM. It's like nowadays they project that as one of the most popular tech roles alongside software developers, right? And you really have to go through the extra mile if you don't have that technical experience. So I do recommend going through hackathons, learning some web development on your own, practicing those technical interviews as well, because you might get them as a PM still, learning some SQL, learning some data analysis, and really just trying to reach out to startups or even build your own stuff to really learn how to build stuff 0 to 1s from scratch, which is a really rare talent.
I mean, there's always this, you've probably seen this meme online where it's dev is oh, I want to build this feature in 2 days. And I think those kinds of PM, I think for them, it's mostly because they don't have the technical understanding of how long it takes to build some of these things, right? It's easier for a non-technical PM to just be oh, I want you guys to build. I'm hold on. This is going to take a long period of time. So, and that's very interesting. And you were saying that it's not the same way things are when 2008 or whenever or 2020 when you started or went into product management. How would you say the tech space has changed over time in terms of the saturation? Because it's I think I recorded a video where I was saying that 2020, if someone did not know what they wanted to do with their lives, it's just pick up a skill in tech, that kind of thing. And then that led to this saturation where everybody was learning tech and just a few people made something of themselves, I guess. It's the way to put it. And now, I mean, a lot of people are still going into tech more than any other field, I think. What do you think, how do you think things have changed over time, and what do you think people need to consider now if you're going to should you just go into tech because it has a low barrier of entry, you could just take a course online, that kind of thing? What do you think about that?
I think definitely back in my day, I know it's weird to say back in my day, I'm absolutely too young to say that, so I'm sorry. Maybe I should retract that.
I mean, you can say back in your day. Your day is your day. Okay, so back in your day.
So back in my day, back in around 2017, 2018 to 2019, where my pursuit of product management really took flight, I think that the tech market itself was not that saturated, relatively speaking, with my perception of things, at least relatively compared to now. Now, that being said, it was still already gaining a lot of popularity. Everyone, at least in my college, because I went to a very tech-savvy and entrepreneurial school, Waterloo, everyone was trying to get into tech, and you had at least a few friends in CS and engineering and whatnot trying to go to Cali and trying to go to NYC to get co-ops and stuff. And that really pushed and made a perception of this must be really popular, right? And this industry is incredibly cracking. And but then when you go out and you explore other fields and you go to other schools and you talk to other friends outside of that, suddenly it doesn't feel like it's that.
I think What do you think about how that is currently, like compared to like then compared to now?
It's definitely, I've seen an exponential amount of growth in saturation in the tech field, not only for software developers and PMs. I think design has also seen a exponential growth of saturation. Tech marketing per se, tech consulting, tech something, right? Any sort of adjacent business or technical field, it feels like a lot of folks, maybe not including hardware engineers. I feel like there's always going to be a need for hardware engineers, and maybe that's grown somewhat on a stagnant level. But for a lot of the most highest paying jobs, like the ones that are truly the North Stars dictating the popularity of our industry, has caused that exponential saturation. So definitely for sure, like from 2018 until like 2024, 2025 now, I've seen that saturation, which is both a good and a bad thing, right? Bad in the sense that obviously I think that makes it very easy to filter for like the top ones who really do get those big tech jobs, those six-figure tech jobs, and or at least something that's really well like what they would expect out of putting so much time and effort into breaking into it. But it's also good in the sense that I think that is really driving a lot of people into the tech space and a lot of smart people to build really cool stuff. And not just for big tech, but even people, because of the amount of like third-party APIs, free source software nowadays available to us, there's so many people breaking into the tech space, building such cool things, building their own productivity apps, building something with AI, right? Building their own small little chatbots. So I think there's a lot of good stuff coming out because of that too.
Awesome. Talking about like good stuff. This is just one of those interesting side comments. Why do you think BlackBerry Messenger did not work out? I mean, I say that because even the BlackBerry phone itself, BlackBerry was one of the. I don't know if it was a smartphone, but it was like everybody was using BlackBerry. Like even in Nigeria, like BlackBerry was that thing. Like BlackBerry was the thing, but iPhone came and somehow just something happened along the way. Like, why do you think BlackBerry phone and BlackBerry Messenger did not like work out?
When the iPhone first, I think it was maybe the iPhone 4 that was announced. Mike Lazardis, who was then the CEO of BlackBerry, did not, I think, put in as much effort as he should have to take it seriously and take competition seriously. There was this big traditional effort to preserve the fact that there was this like physical note keypad on those hardware phones, and to keep that because that was part of the branding. Like that was a signature BlackBerry phone. And soon thereafter, you just saw the market share from BlackBerry phones in the smartphone industry tank from like 80 something percent to a bottom 20 something percent within the span of like 2 years. And they tried to pivot, but they pivoted way too late. By that point, the iPhone had basically a chokehold on the touch-based smartphone industry, and that was where everyone was headed. And because of how, I would say, sticky the Apple ecosystem was, and especially because Google Android phones were also getting really sticky for the Google Android ecosystem, the BlackBerry OS and the BlackBerry ecosystem was just not at par. And so the team had to put in so much effort to like build all this like these new phones, like the BlackBerry, I think like the Storm or something, that was a touch-based smartphone, but they just couldn't keep up with how sticky the ecosystem was. Like, you know how like if you have a smartphone like a BlackBerry, or sorry, an Apple iPhone, you have Apple everything. The watch, you have the Apple Mac, you have like AirPods, just so like it feels like seamless and smooth, right? And you have Apple-based apps and everything, and iOS development, like free source software. Unfortunately, BlackBerry tried to emulate that, and I feel like they just couldn't keep up because of the amount of resources they pushed into like keeping those hardware phones, and they had to pivot to security, which is obviously a huge pivot. But anyways, anecdote from mine is like when I was at BlackBerry Messenger, the time when I joined was like early 2018. We were at around like 40 million monthly active users on the BlackBerry Messenger. Most of our users were actually in Indonesia. Because that's like maybe the real leftover users are still using BlackBerry Messenger at the time. By the time 4 months later I left my internship, we jumped down to like 20 something million in the span of like 4 months. That's when like everyone knew the business was probably just going out. So, anyways, that's just I think
So
my
I
reasoning
think
on what
there are like
happened.
two things that I wanted us to talk about before we get into like product management.
Yeah.
More like get into tech thing. First is like the Vancouver tech community, and the second one is you writing a book. I think maybe let's talk about the Vancouver tech community. Why did you decide to start the PM Hive? And I know you're like very involved with community building in Vancouver. How did you get into that? Why did you get into that? What? Yeah, let's talk about that first, and then we can dig more into that.
Sure. Yeah. When I moved back from Microsoft in Seattle back to Vancouver to start my new PM job at Planview in the AI space, I absolutely needed something. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I think like I was there definitely just for the socializing aspect initially, because when I moved back, I needed some sort of socializing in my life. My tech career at that point in time has kind of lacked that, getting to connect with like other tech professionals and stuff, because when I was in Seattle at Microsoft, it was the middle of COVID. I was writing that book, and so I rarely went out. And so I definitely felt episodes of depression because of the fact that I was just staying indoors all the time, no vitamin D, no interaction outside socializing or whatsoever. And thus, when I came back, I absolutely vowed to myself that I had to go out. And so I started going to random socializing tech/tech events. And that's when I encountered a few other PMs, or those who wanted to go into PM, but really loved community building. And we went together as like the four of us as co-founders, started this PM community called PM Hive, what it is now today. And as I got more involved in the tech community space, I realized that it's a really good platform to leverage to drive this city, particularly Vancouver, into a tech giant, which I feel like is part of potentially my mission, because I want to potentially call this city my home base.
Why do you think what do you think about the Vancouver tech space? Do you think we've, compared to like SF or Seattle or something, like, because I think you said that before, like trying to get Vancouver to be the tech giant, and I think what is his name? He's always posting about that on LinkedIn also, like
I think Toki, right?
Toki, yeah. So like, what do you guys have in mind? What do you think we should try to do to get to that?
I think Toki's definitely inspired me quite a bit, because I thought less of this as much compared to like now. The thing is, but we aligned, is like the thing is like we both see a future potentially in Vancouver as a home base. The problem is there are just so many cities that overshadow Vancouver obviously as a tech giant, namely SF, NYC as the main ones. But also, if you're talking about Canada, it's mainly Toronto that takes all those the VC and startups, whatever's left in Canada, right? There's not a lot to begin with. But the problem is that drives a lot of brain drain. And we're talking about brain drain, I'm talking about like the smartest engineers and developers and PMs that we home grow in Canada end up going to America or go to Toronto for higher salaries and all that stuff. I'm trying to preserve that. I'm trying to think that there has to be a way for us to preserve smart people to call Vancouver home, to build and to join big tech and all that stuff, or to join startups. So I think that's partly where I see Vancouver right now. So it's not on the same sentence. Like you wouldn't see it mentioned through commas with NYC or SF, but you see the potential, like you see a lot of big tech calling Vancouver as a great hub. You see Microsoft and Amazon and Asana, right? Like establishing good offices in Vancouver. You see some startups here. You just don't see enough. And so I feel like there's a lot of potential, especially given that this city itself and the economy is so real estate based. There has to be some sort of recomposition of that real estate money going into VC funding and startups, and thus more tech talent. So I'm hoping to really drive that.
Yeah, I think that's very nice. I also think that this is me just trying to sell the Vancouver tech space. I think there's also like a lot of like very good talent in Vancouver, but like you said, because you don't hear Vancouver in the same centers as NYC or like SF or something like that, so nobody really comes to try to hire people here or try to establish offices here. And like you said, I think bigger tech companies are probably picking up on the vibe that there's like talent in Vancouver, because I've been seeing more job openings from like Coinbase or like Instacart, or like a lot of tech companies are trying to like get folks here, which I think is nice, and I think it's probably due to some of the work that you guys are doing. So kudos to that. Like shout out to Toki too. But I think I know that the former minister of like employment or something was like trying to get more of tech, trying to get more, do something about that. But I think there's probably something else that the government can try to do to encourage more companies to, which I don't know if they are doing because I'm not in government, like to try to get more companies to invest more, right? Because like you said, the Vancouver economy is like real estate and what else? Real estate, right? So, and because we have so many tech talent, it's nice that we should be able to get more of that. But what do you think individuals or like people that are thinking of the same problems, even like people in government, like what do you think we can try to do better to get that investment or to get more, to put Vancouver on the tech map more or less? What do you think we can do about that?
I think definitely from a more government and almost like bureaucratic point of view is either eliminate any of the red tape that might exist that prevents a lot of startups from coming here, maybe due to taxes, maybe due to other lack of incentives compared to like other cities that do provide those incentives. Like maybe even something like Singapore that provides a lot of different tax break and incentives to bring startups into Singapore. I think Vancouver and namely even some other cities in Canada need to try to do that. Canada and its plethora of different investment sources have notoriously been conservative about giving money away. Back then, I've heard a lot of different startup founders who tried to do Canada investments for their startups say that a lot of the sources feels like just trying to get a mortgage from a bank. It feels like there's so many reviews and layers of security going on that prevents them from just getting that money. And in a source like SF or NYC, as long as you believe in the team and the founders and the idea, there you go, $1 million check, just like that. And so I think Vancouver definitely, number one, definitely trying to eliminate some of that red tape, whatever that red tape might be. And number two is driving incentives, like the ones that you would see in like Singapore, like maybe tax breaks or accelerators, or building an accelerator here that has some VC funding to begin with. That sort of stuff. So getting into that, and then maybe even like trying to recompensate, like re-look at all the money that's flowing around in real estate, right? And seeing where are some pipelines that we can transfer some of that funding into VC and startups and businesses. So those are some things, obviously from the high level, because I don't know the intricacies of that, but I think there's definitely some stuff that we could do.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think the best we can hope is that things get better. I mean, in some sense, I also think that Vancouver in general is a little bit conservative with things. Like, it's not even only like tech or even like just talking about the things that we have going on around here, like the great things we have going on around here. So I think also doing some sort of publicity, which is why I'm talking about this anyways. It's like just in some sort of publicity about the fact that, we do actually have good talent here. We do actually have like good people that are trying to start startups, right? That have very good startups. And if we get a lot of investment, just trying to like get more of that out. I think it's because it's like people don't know what they don't know, right? People, maybe VCs don't know that, there's actually a place where there are very good startups that we could invest in. So talking more about those things on LinkedIn and just trying to like share more of that, I think is something that can also like be very, very beneficial. But yeah, I'm then going to like pivot more into something more personal, which is like you writing a book. Why did you want to write a book? I was going to swear now, but I was like, why? Like, how did you wake up? I'm like, yep, I want to write a book. Like, how did you get into that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I appreciate you asking me that, because I know it's not as tech related, obviously. When I was a kid, I wrote short stories on different platforms, content platforms like DeviantArt and other like kind of writing platforms like fanfiction.net, I think that's what it's called. And I never actually saw myself as an author growing up or anything like that. I just liked storytelling. I really liked storytelling. I liked plot devices. I loved like really employing those plot devices into like really good storytelling and all that stuff. And I realized that I think as COVID hit, we were shut down, we were quarantined, there's not much to do. That was an opportunity and window for me to start writing. For once in my life to actually, because ironically I haven't really read that much compared to like some of the people I know who've read thousands of fiction books. I've read maybe like 100 max. Okay, that's actually terrible of me to say, but so we can keep that in there just to, for sake of like explaining how weird it is. But I love storytelling and I love writing. So I guess I can kind of say like writing is only a mechanism or a tool for me at my disposal in order to storytell. I love storytelling. And so during COVID, I started doing that. And then as we realized that COVID was going to keep going on, and as I started my new tech job at Microsoft, I had some free time on my hands on the weekends and weeknights when I could either content create, which I also did. I could, have some calls with friends and stuff, which I occasionally did. However, there was just a lot of time for me because we just couldn't go out or do too much. And I realized that was a great time for me to keep going on and write for maybe sake of keeping my sanity at check or whatever, what have you, right? So I started doing that. I had some really cool ideas of like some cool fiction stories to tell. I did not realize I was going to publish. Originally, when I started writing, the whole goal was just to maybe publish somewhere. Now, unfortunately, there's kind of this problem in the writing and author space where like it kind of sucks when you write and you're so passionate about your own story, but there's not a lot of readers that appreciate as much as you do, which is a really common problem. And I suffer from that, obviously, myself, which is why I realized that I needed to sign with a writing program to really publish and get my book out there into hundreds of different eyeballs. And that's part of the reason why I did that. Signed up with this writing accelerator. They paired me up with an editor, a book designer and everything, and just went with it. And publishing was great. I would say like I definitely felt like I probably could have marketed the book better because ultimately it barely broke even. But the experience and just getting that book out there feels really, really fulfilling. And it feels like I'm really living a good hobby of mine, like I'm not going to do this full time, obviously. But I feel like I get to make my, how like I brand myself as someone that's like within the PM and AI space and building communities and stuff. But the author angle of my persona feels like it's really elevated, and I get to really like showcase that.
That's very cool. I know you're writing a book. You're working on a book, which we'll get to in the later part of things. But last question about like your book writing is like, what is one advice that you would give someone that is trying to get their book, say they write and they're trying to get themselves published? What one advice you would give them?
Absolutely, the biggest problem I see out there is that people struggle to write. People struggle to create the content to begin with. Like, there's always this like saying goes is like the best way you can become a better writer is just to keep writing. There's a lot of distraction. There's a lot of noise in today's world that prevents us from just being able to sit down and focus for a while. Like there's focus issues, productivity problems. You just got to keep writing. So try to leverage different ways for you to be able to keep productivity out there, which whether that's just like booking a time slot for yourself on your calendar just to focus and write for like 30 minutes. Having writing goals, obviously. Even trying to join a writing community that would, inspire you and push you to keep writing just like your peers would. I think just doing stuff like that would help a lot. I do think that the biggest thing is just like people don't finish their stories that when they start them. There's probably a million different good stories out there that are unfinished, right? That people just give up on. So I would definitely suggest that.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll get back to like talking about the book you're trying to, but let's get back to tech now, which is like, tell me, like, I actually don't know what Planview does. So tell me what you guys do and what you do as a PM on a day-to-day, in case someone's like, oh, I also want to like be a PM. And so tell me what does Planview do and what you also do simply, what Planview does simply and what you do extensively.
Planview, when I first joined, has now really tried to shift itself into becoming like a really strong enterprise strategic portfolio management platform, as well as value stream management and project and portfolio management stuff. And so Planview has really just tried to be the strongest player in the space. So we provide SPM, as we call it, strategic portfolio management solutions. We provide value stream management solutions, which help essentially like software development teams basically visualize what type of work that their team's doing. If there's like any aged work or there's like blockers that or dependencies that could be traced down immediately. We got the cat probably on.
No, yeah, well, that's gonna be so cool.
Yeah. Hey, you're not drinking that. So we have a lot of those like kind of B2B solutions out there. But now that Gen AI has become so popular, we introduced the Gen AI in the form of Planview Copilot, which is an AI assistant that sits on top of our entire Planview suite. Essentially, that's the goal. So it's sitting on currently right now 5 to 6 of ish, depending on, because we're still in the middle of really like putting it in there, of our products. And the whole idea is just to leverage Planview Copilot to help elevate productivity, efficiency, time saving, data accuracy, and just automation for all the portfolio and project or product managers that use our current solutions. So obviously I'm using a lot of corporate enterprise B2B talk. I know it's going to probably sound like a headache for you to hear as a listener, but really that's, for lack of a better word, that's the best way for me to put it. So that's what I'm currently doing now at Planview. So the current product manager for that AI assistant.
Okay, awesome. Like, so what do you think about like, it feels like every company is trying to integrate AI into their system. It's like, everybody, because what do you think about that? Do you think we need to like put AI into everything, or there are just some things that we don't have to put AI into, or we can just find AI applications to make our existing softwares better? What do you think about that?
I have probably a subjective opinion about it. Okay. I think that a lot of businesses, maybe even including ours, I'm not sure, but a lot of like traditional medium to large or even smaller tech businesses or tech companies introduced AI into their software, their solutions, by either offering AI as a service or like using AI to help their own employees. Through pressure from their own VCs, their own board of directors, through their CEO. Because like, if we're not doing that, the CEO is gone, or leadership team is going to get under fire for not introducing the concept of AI to boost the valuation of the own business, right? And so I think there's definitely some influence there. But also there are some real use cases for AI. The only problem is because of the AI craze and about like all these tech companies scrambling to introduce AI into their software, you have so many like untapped use cases and so many use cases that provide some value, but not exactly what users or consumers need. And so I think the problem right now is that we're kind of on the tail end of all that crazy chaos. Now a lot of software companies have AI in some form in their business and their workflows, but there's only a select few that, or use cases, so to speak, that really drive value and really like help users of their platforms on a day-to-day basis. And we're still trying to figure out like what those use cases are, like what exactly users and customers would pay money for. But I think we're getting closer there, and a lot of other businesses are still trying to figure that out.
Okay, awesome. Interesting. So what do you do as a PM?
So I would say like on a day-to-day basis, if I were to describe it there on the low level, there's obviously we have a stand-up. I manage the roadmap and the backlog of our AI assistant team, Planview Copilot. I write epics on a day-to-day basis, and my team takes those epics, breaks those down to user stories to work on. I'm sure you probably do something similar at Asana. I have loads of customer calls. I would say like half my time at Planview is just literally customer and internal enablement, which means like educating because my company, Planview, is a very sales-driven company. So we got to educate our sales folks on how to sell our AI product. Because they'll go in and have no idea like what our AI system does, like what are these new use cases or features. So I got to educate them. So I'm having some enablement calls there. I also have periodical calls with customers.
Okay.
So we have this like early access slash labs program for my product, Planview Copilot, just fun for like a few customers out there who really want to try and give feedback and get early access to our AI assistant. And I'm having these calls to get feedback from them, but also trying to get them to be reference customers, to really drive value to see like where it can actually help them, so that it helps me be a better PM as well. So definitely have my time there if I would get to like kind of break down what I'm doing.
Okay, awesome. But now, what do you enjoy most about what you do, and what do you detest that you're like, I don't want to do this shit? Like, so like, what are those two extreme?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I love doing absolutely is like if you give me autonomy over the roadmap, I will put my heart and soul into that roadmap, right? So I'll go through all these customer calls. I love talking to customers. So like being like really getting to like expose how customer obsessed I am and then put that onto my roadmap. It feels really fulfilling because it feels like I have real customer data that backs why we need to build these things. And then like showing that to our dev team or our leadership team feels like I'm doing something like my actual PM job. I'm providing value. I also love obviously creating content because like, you know, just writing and stuff. So I feel like there's some like overlap there. What I dislike doing now, you're going to see this answer probably all the time, is just the political stakeholder management. I think I also like stakeholder management in the sense that it feels like if you're empowered to manage stakeholders well, that's like another value that a PM brings to the team, removing red tape or like protecting their dev team. But there's also like stakeholder management of like having to like push back, and even feeling like if you're not empowered to push back, then suddenly it's tough. So like if you have like a boss or a CTO or a VP that goes in and says like, I don't like how you chose orange as the button for the color for this design, change it. I don't like it. I don't care what you think, change it. Suddenly you're like, dude, are you trying to do my work for me, or like what do you want? I have data to show you that like our customers like this, or I have research that shows that like I think this makes sense, or I just want ownership or autonomy. So I think there's definitely some balance there.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And how would you say that, considering that you worked at Microsoft, which is a big tech company, and now you work at Planview? I think I was initially saying Planet View. I don't know what I was saying. I think I was saying Planet, but Planview. There's the mug right there. So how would you compare working at a big tech company to working at, I assume you guys are a startup, right? So how would you compare? Are you guys a startup? How big is Planview?
Planview is not a startup, but it's definitely much smaller than Microsoft. So Planview is mid-size, like about like 1,000 something employees.
Oh, okay, that's mid-size then. Okay,
yeah.
Interesting. I
And
thought you guys were small.
We try to move small. We try to move like a small startup, at least my AI assistant team, because we have a lot of leeway to do that. But there are so many differences. So at Microsoft, definitely I think like the process of innovation slightly, not necessarily like slower per se, because because I think Microsoft is a pretty innovative company. And the fact that they're able to like shift their roadmaps out to like ship new things all the time is incredibly impressive. But I think in general, for a large company, in general, you do see like it's harder to pivot all the time at a really fast pace, like a startup would, right? Just simply because of bureaucracy, red tape. A lot of the corporate ladder involves a lot of like decision making and all that sort of stuff, leadership decisions. My company itself, back at Microsoft, we used OKRs, so objectives and key results. And because if there was also anyways like there had to be a change in place to the roadmap and such, it would be based on the OKR. And because we did quarterly OKRs, usually it would be like couple months to maybe half a year or so for like different key results to change, to pivot and stuff like that. At Planview, it's so far much more easier to change and pivot. If the CTO wants to come in and suddenly say that we need to change the roadmap to fit this because we have this new glorious idea that we can get more adoption, or we need to shift an engineer away from your team to another team to save an account, suddenly it's easier to do that. It's easier to pivot. I also find that in a medium-sized company, or in a large company, like no matter what, you're definitely going to have to do some sort of education, like evangelism, so to speak, to internal other stakeholders that need to learn how your product works to help you sell it. But the smaller your company is, the less of that you have to do internally, and the more public facing you get to be, and the more customer facing you get to be. And I see that at Planview compared to Microsoft too.
Okay, interesting. Awesome. So if you're like trying to consider whether choosing a big tech company or like something more mid-sized, I guess you can just weigh your options and see what you're trying to look for. I mean, we're about to reach the 1 hour mark, so I want us to like start rounding things up. So I wanted to ask about AI. I'd like to ask everybody about AI.
Yeah, of course.
What do you think
About, I'm going to be like more specific. So, what do you think? Because you're building something related to AI, you're leading like the Planview Copilot. What is that one aspect of like AI that people are not talking enough about that you feel like we need to talk more about?
I think there's like two angles of AI I see. I see a realistic hype train to Gen AI specifically, because you see it's you already see its application in so many different workflows. So you see Gen AI taking meeting notes for you. You see Gen AI creating real like 3D video. You see Gen AI writing reports and writing emails for you all the time, and people building agents, so to speak, or vertical agents that do that work for them. That's real. And I use AI on a lot of day-to-day like niche tasks, like maybe coming up with a shopping list, handling my to-do list. You have AI that can help add some blocks to your calendar to manage your time better. You have AI just for simple like curious questions like a Wikipedia page. However, the problem is that I think what people realize or don't realize as much in both the B2B and B2C space is that real value, like monetary attachment to real AI value, is in the form of like niche specific use cases that can truly almost replace that human task. I think that like if a company is trying to just adopt AI for the sake of adopting it, they're going to run into a lot of discovery problems. Like just discovering where are those actual key kill use cases and getting people to actually use AI is much harder than it looks. I think that like real AI in the future will be showcased in the form of vertical AI agents or just AI agents that do specific niche tasks really well. Like domain expertise or the sophistication of the agent. It's not going to be like, oh, you just put an AI assistant over something and all of a sudden your entire life is going to be revolutionized. That's not how it works, unfortunately, right now. I see though, like as according to Moore's law, like as chips get faster, as hardware and infrastructure gets better, better models are going to get trained, obviously. NVIDIA stock hopefully goes up. All that sort of stuff will hopefully elevate our Gen AI space into the adjacent possible, like the next level of innovation that we'll see, whatever it is. So definitely more applications of use, but still the reality is not everyone's going to be using AI for everything. And people who are trying to add AI to their products will have to really focus and put time into like interpersonally with their users, like what exactly could be replaced with AI, because it's not everything.
I see. Okay, awesome. When you're talking about NVIDIA and stuff, then a very interesting thing came to my mind, which is like, what do you think about DeepSeek? So that's probably the last thing we're going to talk about tech, and then we move to something like, so what do you think about DeepSeek? Do you think, because I think the whole premise of what NVIDIA is doing and what OpenAI is doing is that, we need more power, we need like more compute to like build better models and those kind of things. But I think DeepSeek came and I'm like, we can actually build a model that is going to require less processing power, and you can run it on your private computer, stuff like that. And that just blew everything out of the park, and everyone's like, oh wow. I mean, I think there are theories about that, because some people are like, it's possible that OpenAI is, because it's more like it's possible that OpenAI is thinking about the models in a different way. Foundationally, how to build the model is different from how DeepSeek built their stuff from the foundation, and probably that affected how things turned out, right? Because it's like you already have a foundation of how your models are. You're just trying to like build more and build more upon that. You have like GPT-3, and then you maybe add more parameters, and then you have GPT-4, thinking that's how you're going to get more power. And someone that is like just starting from scratch has that leeway to think about a different way of building models. I guess I've already started answering like the question, but like, what do you think about like DeepSeek models and how they just? What do you think? Let me just throw out an open-ended question.
As of this recording, I'm not 100% sure if we've gotten evidence to prove that they only spent like $5 million US, I think, to train the whole model or anything like that. However, what I think DeepSeek definitely proved was how easy it is to make it open source is to build GPTs with the limited chips, without potentially even NVIDIA chips, to do it, and with the limited or relatively speaking like cheaper models and cheaper resources, and to still get to that same quality index level as GPT-4o, Claude Sonnet, and all those other like really trained, well-known models out there in the Gen AI space. I think because of that, and because how it's open source, that introduces the possibility adjacent to allow a lot of startups and even homegrown businesses, or even just like entrepreneurs, or even like, for example, like solopreneurs, right? To just use their own machines to suddenly train their own like really niche LLM, like a mini LLM, or even leverage their own like as open source LLM to do something for themselves on their day-to-day basis, like automating a small workflow, automating a small task, sending an email out. So I think it's suddenly unlocked the adjacent possible, and it's made people realize just how close it is for the entire world to be able to get access to cheaper models and cheaper training. How that really actually impacts daily our human lives, I think that's definitely still up to debate, and I'm still skeptical of the fact that suddenly we're just going to see AI all over the place, because I don't think that's how our application and use of it will truly work. But I do see that more solopreneurs, small businesses, startups with limited finite resources will be able to leverage mini LLMs and cheaper chips and cheaper models with almost the same quality, parallel quality of like larger models, and still be able to like handle a lot of tasks different well. So I at least think that we're getting closer to that, which is still going to be a big change.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a very interesting way to think about it. So now back to you, which is me just trying to round this up. What is next for you this year? What are you working on? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I think I see my own career, like I always like, if I'm going to talk about what I'm going to be working on next, I'd like to talk about like maybe where I see myself in my career 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. I've always seen myself as that of a really, really good product, both a product and a people leader. So in that space and providing value, driving a really competent product strategy out, managing stakeholders, managing the team really well. So I always kind of saw myself in that space as a thought leader in product management, maybe in AI if that's still relevant in the future. And in productivity and career anxiety. So I think in where I see myself next to get to that level, to that vision, is definitely working on my nonfiction books. So I think, as you mentioned, I'm doing like a nonfiction book about and writing about generally, and doing interviews about how a lot of our young adult generation, like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, soon, so to speak, will be dealing with career anxiety and how they can combat that. And another one is definitely learning more about the adjacents of Gen AI. So stuff like how vertical AI agents can somehow improve the construction management space, or help make people a better cook, or make people better content creators like us. Like learning about how that will impact specific real life practical use cases and careers, I think is something that I'm exploring right now. So how that impacts my career, I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely want to focus obviously on my current product management career at Planview or elsewhere, grow that space so that, where I end up in the future is still really, really aligned with like what I just mentioned. So some sort of application of AI, or at least an application of really high tech innovation. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Thank you very much. I usually try to ask people this. Is there something you wanted us to talk about in this whole conversation that we did not talk about?
I think one thing that I'd love to chat somewhat briefly about is definitely I feel like there's a lot of anxiety when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of content-based knowledge workers out there who are fearful that AI will replace all the work that they're doing, like content writing, marketing, even being like a front desk representative of some sort. Definitely don't be as anxious as, because I feel like a lot of the anxiety that's really blowing out of proportion right now, because it feels like we're all behind. Like it feels like a lot of our young adult and young career adults are somewhat suffering from anxiety because their true career path or dream or job is going to get replaced by AI. They're going to be irrelevant. Don't fall victim to that type of thinking. I think that a lot of media does kind of like blow it out of proportion a little bit about like where we're really at with AI. Now, obviously, like we're still in a really great spot, and I think AI is definitely gonna revolutionize a lot of what we do. But there's so much opportunity for you to be able to pivot, adapt, and find a career recomposition of the types of stuff that you'd want to do. And leverage AI as a companion or as a complement to your future career path, rather than thinking that, oh, your entire existence is going to get replaced. I think that's definitely blown out of proportion. Like, I'm not that anxious about the fact that, you know, as a fiction writer or as a content writer, that AI is just going to replace all my writing. Because think about it, right? Like, there's that human element of human experience that we as humans know that we are able to translate to paper. That AI is only trained with data to do, and not with actual real human experience that really like reflect that on paper. And so that, using that as an example, I think that it's going to be incredibly difficult and almost like a definitely like almost like a, I would say like a separate thought process to think that you would have to read something that's AI generated, and you know for a fact that's AI generated, you'd pick and laugh at that, versus like someone that's real writing, and you're thinking, you're appreciating that human writing. So I do think that there's going to be an appreciation of human elements in our work. And so I definitely kind of want to speak to everyone listening to this is definitely don't fall victim to all that career anxiety induced by AI. I do think that some stuff might be blown out of proportion, and prepare for the workforce by using AI as a complement, but not losing direction.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you very much, Kasey. This has been a very wonderful chat, and so after this, Kasey and I are going to be talking about something that he's working on, so you can watch this somewhere. I'm going to put the link about that, but thank you very much for staying to the end, and see ya.